Ma'am, are you really married? Huh? What do you mean? I had hired a detective to conduct a certain investigation. The report from the detective revealed an unexpected truth, leaving me unable to hide my turmoil. If my husband has been taking advantage of my night shifts to indulge in secret pleasures, I will never forgive him. My name is Jane. I'm a nurse working at a general hospital. The first Thanksgiving after our marriage is coming in 2 months. My husband, George, who I married 6 months ago, is 5 years older and a very kind man. We met at a matchmaking party and hit it off because we had the same last name. We got married around the 4th year of our relationship. George's parents had already passed away, and he had no other relatives, so we skipped the wedding ceremony and opted for a bridal photo shoot. George is an area manager for a retail store. While he primarily works at the branch office, he also travels to the headquarters and visits various stores. Since we don't have children yet, I decided to earn as much as I can while I can, so I mainly work night shifts. Thanks to that, I can relax after night shifts and on my days off. And I think I have more days off than other professions since one night shift counts as 2 days of work. George's work schedule didn't have fixed days off, so he often managed to align his days off with mine. We enjoy our newlywed life by going on short trips and dating. One day, when I came home from a night shift, George, who was supposed to have already gone to work, was still at home. I'm home. Huh? Aren't you supposed to work today? Puzzled, I asked. Well, you see. George hesitantly began to speak. An urgent business trip came up starting tomorrow, and it's going to be a bit long, so they suddenly gave me the day off today. Is that so? How long will you be gone? About a week, maybe a bit longer, but I won't know until I get there. I see. I hope things go well. I was disheartened by the sudden and extended business trip. It was because I'm off tomorrow and the day after, and I was looking forward to spending a quiet evening with George. Since my days off are rarely consecutive. But it's just part of his job, so I accepted it and decided to take George to the airport. It takes about 2 hours by car to get to the airport. And from there, it's about a 2-hour flight to the headquarters in New York. After seeing George off at the airport, I wandered around the building for a while. Then I had lunch at a well-known nearby cafe and headed home. Exhausted, I lay down on the sofa and found an unfamiliar envelope under the table. It would be trouble if it were something George forgot to take on his business trip. While feeling a bit guilty, I checked inside. Inside, there were photos of George with an unfamiliar woman and a little girl, probably around 5 years old. The album contained several photos of the girl in front of a kindergarten, smiling innocently. What is this? My mind went completely blank. Could it be an affair? And with a single mother, of all things. Unforgivable. An affair. With that thought, I found myself unconsciously calling George's company. After identifying myself as an acquaintance of George. Making up a reason, I inquired if he had gone on a business trip. Only to be told that he had taken leave for bereavement. Moreover, I was informed that the company hardly ever sends employees on trips from the branch to the headquarters. What does this mean? He told me he was leaving home for a business trip, but bereavement? I wasn't informed of anything. Thinking that he lied about the company and took time off to meet the woman and child in the photos, I started looking for a detective agency. I selected a detective agency and decided to visit their office the next day. For the 4 years we have been together, it turns out I have been continuously lied to. There were no business trips. I felt incredibly empty. Perhaps due to accumulated fatigue, I fell asleep without realizing it. When I woke up, it was 6 a.m. the next morning. Since my appointment at the detective agency was at 10 a.m. I prepared everything and carefully placed the envelope I found the day before into a large bag so it wouldn't get creased. At the appointed time, I walked through the doors of a detective agency for the first time in my life. All the words I had planned to say vanished the moment I opened the door to the office. The person waiting at the detective agency was a man in his mid-20s, dressed casually like a student. Perhaps sensing my surprise at his youth, the man said, "Do I look like an unreliable detective?" He laughed with an easygoing smile, lightening the mood. "Oh, no, sorry. It's just that I'm a bit nervous since it's my first time here." I replied reflexively, but he gestured for me to take a seat on the sofa. After some small talk with the detective, I took out the album that had sparked my suspicions of an affair. His actions were swift and professional. He efficiently began making copies of the necessary evidence. Then, holding a copy of the photo with 3 people in front of the kindergarten, he said, "I think this will be a significant clue." The name of the kindergarten was clearly visible in the photo. The detective immediately searched for the kindergarten online and made a phone call. Since he made the call in another room, I couldn't hear how he obtained the information. But the little girl in the photo was a student at that kindergarten. Apparently, she was also currently absent from the kindergarten. The detective decided to start a preliminary investigation. Since the kindergarten was in New York, I was told the fee for the investigation would be quite high, but I agreed. Actually, I have been interested in stocks and FX trading for a while and have been studying about it. When I started working, I began investing part of my monthly salary and had made some earnings, so I decided to use that for the investigation. The detective will have to fly into New York and it's uncertain how many days it will take to gather evidence. But being lied to by George is the greatest humiliation for me. I am determined to obtain evidence at all costs. That determination is what's driving me. The detective seemed to think that the girl would likely attend kindergarten again once George returned. From the next day on, I went about my work as usual. Of course, I carefully returned the envelope to its original place. Then, I received a call from George, who had initially said he would be gone for a week. "Sorry, my business trip got extended by 3 days. I'll be back on Sunday." As planned, I contacted the detective on the day George returned home. The detective was eager and ready to go. The next day, he flew to New York and conducted the preliminary investigation. That evening, I received a call from the detective, who confronted me with an incredible fact. During the preliminary investigation, an unexpected situation came to light. "Huh? What do you mean?" I was completely confused. "First of all, I'll be returning tomorrow, so do you have time to meet?" "Yes, as soon as possible." I replied and headed straight to the office after my night shift the next day. Was it really an affair? As I asked, the detective seemed hesitant to speak. "No, it seems to be a more serious matter than that." The detective looked so serious that I was at a loss for words. "First, it's true that your husband took leave for bereavement and was absent from his company. But, are you really married to George?" "Huh? What do you mean?" "We officially got married 6 months ago. Actually, when I followed the 2 of them from the kindergarten to their home, the neighbors said that he relocated here 4 years ago alone for work, returning to New York only a few times a year. It seems he stayed in New York for about a week for the funeral of his wife's grandmother." "That can't be." I was speechless. "Since you and George originally had the same last name, I can't say anything for sure at this stage. But I recommend you check at the county clerk's office." Taking the detective's advice, I thanked him and went straight to the clerk's office. There, I asked for a copy of our marriage license. They told me there was no record of my marriage. No way. This must be a mistake. I got married 6 months ago. Confused, I raised my voice to the female staff at the counter. She also seemed troubled and said, "Even if you say so, we still can't find any record of marriage." Yet, I insisted and pleaded. "Please check again. My husband's name is George. Please." The clerk, looking truly sorry, kept apologizing to me. I was nearly in tears. Confused, I remembered about the day we submitted our marriage registration. I was supposed to work that day, but George insisted on submitting the marriage registration alone on a lucky day, and went on his own to the clerk's office. I never imagined that the marriage registration had not been submitted. After shedding tears, my emotions gradually settled. I apologized and left the office. As I headed home exhausted from my night shift, I thought about the many things that had happened. As I sat on the sofa contemplating what to do next, I must have fallen asleep. When I woke up, George was there, preparing dinner. Seeing him like that, I was reminded of the woman and the girl in the photos. I was furious at being deceived, but realizing that losing my composure would solve nothing, I managed to control my emotions. From that day on, I kept a smile on my face in front of George. About a week had passed since my visit to the clerk's office. I wondered if there was any way to find out about George's legal wife from his phone or surroundings. George was prone to forgetting things, and it seemed that he had accidentally left his phone at home that day. I had the day off, so I thought about returning it to him, but decided to check it out first. Normally, it's not right to look through someone else's phone without permission, but I couldn't afford such considerations under the circumstances. Believing that my mental state couldn't withstand this situation much longer, I felt I had no choice. Since George occasionally said his PIN code aloud while unlocking his phone, getting past the code was easy. From there, I found the contact details for the woman whose icon photo was of the girl from the photos. I immediately called this woman. On the third ring, "Hello? Who is this?" I heard the calm and refined voice of a woman. I said, "Are you George's wife?" The woman's tone, previously elegant, turned perplexed. "Yes, I am. But who are you?" I met George while he was on a work assignment, and it's hard to say this, but we're currently living together. So there really is another woman over there. I understand. I was actually planning to visit George's family home for Thanksgiving. Could we talk then? This was an unexpected turn of events for me. I gladly accepted her offer. A few days later, George told me, "Sorry, but I'm going to go back to my hometown for a reunion over the Thanksgiving holiday." I had been waiting for George to say this. Of course, I immediately agreed. According to the woman, George's hometown is just nearby. I had heard that his parents were deceased and he had no other relatives, but it turns out both his parents were alive and well, still living in the neighboring town. With 1 month left until Thanksgiving, I decided to find a lawyer experienced in matrimonial issues and planned to thoroughly punish George. Until the day of the showdown, I interacted with George as usual, though it was emotionally painful for me. Finally, a month later, the day arrived. I told George the first had a night shift starting the evening before Thanksgiving Day. "Then, take care and have fun," I said with a smile as I left the house. Of course, I had already explained the situation to my workplace and taken leave for 4 days. I stayed at a business hotel that night, and the next morning, I went to the meeting place with George's wife, where I found the elegant woman I'd seen in the photos. Her name was Emily, and she had been married to George for 6 years. They had a 4-year-old daughter, the girl in the photos. After briefly sharing our backgrounds, Emily and I proceeded with the plan we had made. Emily had come all the way from New York with her daughter and her parents by plane. Since it wasn't a conversation for a young child to hear, her daughter was with Emily's mother at the hotel. Along with Emily's father, we headed to George's parents' house. Emily had already informed George's parents about the situation, and I was surprised to be met with deep apologies from them upon seeing me. Then, the evening of Thanksgiving Day, George arrived promptly and opened the living room door of his parents' house. "I'm home. Welcome back." The one greeting George with a smile wasn't his parents or Emily, but me. Seeing me, the color drained from George's face. "Why are you here?" Shocked, George faced me as I said, "What's all this? Weren't you married to me?" I replied with a calm smile. "No, this is..." George stood there, pale and unable to move. Then Emily, her father, and George's parents all appeared, completing the group. Everyone glared at George. Emily quietly began to speak. "What is this, George? You were assigned to work here, but we had just had a child and needed my parents' support, so I asked you to come alone. But then to have an affair and now bigamy." Emily was so calm her words sent a chill down my spine. I was truly grateful to have her as an ally in this situation. I too piled on, unleashing a torrent of words. "George, so every time you said you were on a business trip, you've been meeting your family. Why did you even approach me if you were married? Thought you could deceive me? This is marriage fraud. You're such a scum. And when I inquired about your business trips at your company, they said you hardly ever have any. You have such a beautiful wife and adorable daughter, what were you thinking? I was such a fool to believe you." Faced with accusations from both of us, George let out a sigh and then, unexpectedly, started to laugh. I wonder how you found out. I enjoyed my double life, especially since you were the perfect match. It was easy to deceive you since we shared the same surname, and with you mostly working night shifts, I had plenty of freedom. George's mother said she couldn't believe it and landed a punch on his face. I looked up at George and said, "That's right. You had 3 other women besides me, didn't you?" I confronted him with the evidence photos. Panicked, George retorted, "What's this? Are you a stalker? I'll sue you." His response was incoherent. "This is the evidence gathered by a detective because I suspected you of having affairs. Emily and I will sue you for this." As I spoke firmly, George suddenly began to prostrate himself and profusely apologized to us. "Sorry, please, anything but that. I'll continue the relationship with both of you, just spare me the lawsuit." He cried out in desperation. It was appalling to hear, and upon inquiry, it turned out he had no money due to overspending on his other affairs. "That's none of my concern. I say. I don't even want to speak to you anymore. We'll discuss this through lawyers from now on." Leaving those words behind, I left George's family home. Subsequently, through legal proceedings, we sought compensation for the quasi-bigamous situation. I am grateful to the lawyer for ensuring a substantial settlement. Feeling sorry for Emily, I offered her some compensation, which she declined. Instead, she thanked me for providing such conclusive evidence, and we became friends. According to Emily, she received settlements from George's other girlfriends and separated from him. She ensured she had received proper assets and child support. Furthermore, one of George's affairs was with a coworker, leading to his demotion and reassignment to a subsidiary company. There, George is reportedly being overworked by younger employees and cries every day. However, he can't quit his job due to the obligation to pay the settlements and child support. Meanwhile, I moved out of the house we shared, renting a perfectly sized apartment for myself and leading a comfortable life. I visit New York a few times a year, maintaining my friendship with Emily and her daughter.